Okay. Sorry I have to do this presentation with the lights off, guys. And I also have to figure out how to get this mic out. Okay, good morning. Oh, you guys answered. That's really great and unprompted. If I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not a morning person. So this is going to be tough. But I am Emily Royall, and I am many things, which I would like to blame on self-honesty. I'm an artist, an urban planner, a curator, a data professional. Temporarily, I was a data journalist, formerly at the Rivard Report, and I've just accepted a new role at the City of San Antonio as the Smart City Coordinator. So I'm a lot of things, thanks. I'm a lot of things. And that's something that I think I've had to embrace over time, being honest with myself about the things that give me joy, which is part of what this presentation is going to be about. So the title of my presentation is, Oops, Honesty Happened, because honesty is something that I think is inside of us, and it comes out whether we like it or not in some cases, and that can be really awkward and embarrassing. But I like to think of honesty, or at least self-honesty, as a force that's living inside of us. And over time, we kind of learn how to channel that or how to cultivate that in a way that empowers us. But as you'll hear in this story, maybe when we're younger, honesty just kind of blurts out. And in particular, this story is about a moment in my life where I was very self-honest, but actually I can point to this moment in time where my life changed, ironically, as the result of a lie. So if I'm going to be honest with you again, I really hate it when people start presentations with quotes, because I find that to be totally unimaginative. But I really wanted to bring this one to your minds today, because it's been something I've been meditating on for the last couple of months. And it is by the Persian poet and philosopher Rumi. And the quote is, "Let the beauty you love be what you do." Sounds really simple. Maybe it's really hard, but we're gonna come back to this quote in just a little bit. For now, how many of you guys have seen Sliding Doors? Are there any children of the 90s in the house? Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So Sliding Doors is a film starring Gwyneth Paltrow. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story about my personal Sliding Doors moment. For those of you who have not seen Sliding Doors, it's about a young woman in London and a seemingly insignificant choice that she makes radically transforms her life. So, her choice is whether or not to get on a subway. And in the first version of the story, she doesn't get onto the subway car. In the second version of the story, she manages to push through the subway car and actually get on. So as a result of this, two versions of Gwyneth Paltrow emerge through the story. In the first, on the right, she gets on the subway train, and because of that, she gets home just in time to discover that her longtime boyfriend is actually cheating on her. As a result of that, that kickstarts Gwyneth Paltrow's kind of personal reinvention. She becomes an entrepreneur, she dumps that guy, she becomes a self-actualized woman, she cuts off all her hair, just like me, and she becomes this self-actualized person. The second version of Gwyneth Paltrow that's in the movie doesn't get onto the subway car. And as a result, she doesn't get home in time to find out that her boyfriend's cheating on her. She remains trapped in this relationship. She takes a job as a waitress and ultimately gets pregnant from this guy who doesn't love her. Okay. So when I was watching this movie, I was like looking for answers. And I was really shocked at this idea, like, wow, a totally small moment in our lives where we make a decision might radically transform our lives. So the story I'm gonna tell you right now is about that moment in my life that I can point to where I told a lie and it radically transformed my life. How did my life transform? Well, I got into my dream school, which is MIT, which I cannot believe happened. And as a result of that, I was teleported into this international space working with architects and designers, local governments and communities to use technology in ways to improve people's lives in cities. That took me to everywhere from Cambodia to Iceland, which totally blew my mind and completely transformed my perspective of the world and what's possible. Coming back to San Antonio, I started a design studio called Overt, and I worked on projects that build gaps, that bridge gaps between technology access, education, and awareness for our youth. And that led me to do cool things like teaching classes with San Antonio's youth about things like how to protect your privacy online, and work with them to collaborate on artistic projects that I also curate various shows and bring forth these participatory art experiments that I do with San Antonio's youth around culture and technology issues affecting our lives in cities. So this has always led me to ask myself, what if I hadn't done this little lie? So, flashback to 2010. I am a senior at the University of Texas at Austin, and I am a neuroscience major. So for those of you who might be in college right now, don't worry about it. Whatever your major is may have absolutely nothing to do with what you end up doing. And I know people tell you that and you don't believe it, but it's very true and accurate. So I'm studying for this neuroscience test, and I have this like totally esoteric knowledge of being able to maybe explain some of this to you guys right now, but I'm not gonna do that. And I was studying for like this OChem test, organic chemistry test, which I really needed to do well on. And as you can imagine, on a beautiful Sunday afternoon in Austin, that is the last thing that I want to be doing with my life. So, while I'm studying for this test, I hear a report come over the radio, and it is about local architects and designers who were coming to a space called the Old Bakery and Emporium, which is a historic site in Austin, a couple blocks down from the state capitol. And they were reimagining how to repurpose this space, how to design it in a way that it might be useful for the community in a new way in the future. And that kind of got me daydreaming a little bit while I was studying for this organic chemistry test. And I thought, what would it be like to be an architect? Interesting. What would it be like to sort of start imagining, what buildings could look like and how to transform public spaces? And maybe I would just sit there and daydream about, these alternative futures that I could create for people by designing public space in a new way. And then, I'd go to my office and I'd, put that person on hold on the phone, and I would just kind of, touch the pencil to my lips in deep thought about how I might just make a difference in people's lives. And then I'd get so inspired by my ideas, I would just start sketching them creatively, just throwing on paper whatever cool design I was coming up with in my beautiful mind. And then I would go to my boss and I'd be like, hey man, this is how it's gonna work. Let me tell you, I just came up with this great idea to design this super cool building, and it's gonna solve everybody's problems. It's gonna be so great. And for the record, I was not having a gender-bending experience in my daydream, but if you Google search architect on Google Images, you don't get a whole lot of pictures of women. So, I was imagining, explaining to my boss, this is this really cool idea, you're totally on board, and then after I'm done explaining that to him, I'm gonna build a tiny version of it. That's gonna be me, and I'm gonna make that tiny cool version of this building. Oh, it's so beautiful. And I was getting totally carried away with this daydream. So I thought to myself, yes, this is me. I can relate to this. I'm totally going to do this. So without thinking very hard, as maybe a 20-year-old person might not do, I pushed my test that I was studying for away from my desk. I took a couple steps back, and then I ran to my car. I jumped in my car, and I drove directly to the old bakery. Now, when I get there, I'm looking around and I'm seeing, wow, like there's a lot of these like super fly architects in here. I'm seeing a lot of AIA and LEED certified flashing around. And I'm like, man, this is serious, this is real. So I walk up to the registration desk and I ask this woman, you know, I'm here for this event. And she looks at me, shuffles through her papers, you know, types something on the computer, and she looks at me and she goes, oh, I'm sorry, you're not on the list. Also, for the record, if you Google search in images, you're not on the list. There's not a whole lot of pictures of ladies telling you that you're not on the list. Okay, so this woman's like, you're not on the list. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is my sliding doors moment. One version of me could be like, dang, I'm not on the list. I totally should have planned for this. You know, I should have registered like a normal person in advance and gone through the motions and gotten on the list. And the other part of me is like, maybe there's a way that I could get on the list. So this is where I get into trouble. When I go back to the woman and I explain to her, lady, let me tell you, let me explain this to you. I totally registered for this. I'm an architect. Yes, I told her that I was an architect and I had registered for this online and that there must be something wrong with their systems for not taking my registration. And she looks at me and she goes, oh, okay, that's totally possible. Yeah, definitely. Let me just take down your firm. What firm are you with? And I go, Royall Architects, LLC. Duh, you don't know about us? We're huge. So she's kind enough to write Royall Architects, LLC on a makeshift badge that I then slap on and go into this design charrette for all these cool local architects and local talent. And you know what? I had one of the best days of my life. I completely forgot about that exam. Totally forgot about pretty much the entirety of my neuroscience major up until that point. And I enjoyed a blissful day of collaborating with people who were civic-minded architects, designers, urban planners, community members that were really focused on how to make this space in particular a space that could benefit the city of Austin. And I was just blissful. I was so happy. I found this work that we were doing together to be so beautiful. So I enjoy my day together, and then I find myself ushered in to a dinner with the architects. And in case you don't understand this analogy, I'm also Jack Dawson in this image. So we're having this dinner, and it's a very professional dinner, and these people are talking about, you know, congratulating each other on being masters of the universe. And this woman looks at me, who's sitting next to me. She looks me in the face, and she is like, what are you doing here? You are not an architect. She caught me. And I was like, hands up, you're right. I'm not an architect. I'm a neuroscience major, and I'm from UT, but you know what? I really love what we're doing here. I just like totally want to hang out with you guys. Can I just like hang out with y'all? Like, this is so great. Like, I'll just follow you. I'll just do whatever you do. Like, I'm just gonna like, you know, sketch and design and like talk to people about community issues. Like, whatever you want, I'll totally do that. And it turns out, as a result of my lie, pushing through the sliding doors, if you will, this woman was the CEO of her own urban planning firm in Austin called McCann Adams Studio. And she gave me my first job after I graduated. As a neuroscience major, she gave me a job in her urban planning firm. Nuts. But we had a lot in common, and she became a lifetime mentor for me in this urban planning and architecture space. After I worked there for a year, I applied for grad school at MIT in urban planning, which is what I studied and what totally transformed my life. So, by no means am I advocating to you guys, lie. Go out there, lie, fake it till you make it. You're gonna be great. It's gonna transform your life just every day. Just tell a lie. That is not what I am advocating for. But in this case, I feel that my lie was actually a form of self-honesty, a baby, burgeoning form of self-honesty that really didn't know how to come out yet. And that leads me back to this quote, which is a simple guide, I think, for how to build self-honesty in your life. Let the beauty you love be what you do. So I want to ask you all to think today about what's beautiful in your life. Is it volunteering with students after school? Is it drawing comic books? Is it riding your bike through the city? What's beautiful in your life? Meditate on that, and then do that thing. And that's my presentation.